you have to learn how to adapt. You can plan everything, whatever you want, but the mountain will always say it will go different. So you should never go in with a perspective, yes, we're going to go from A to B and it's going to go like this. Anything can happen in the mountains and you have to be ready to adapt yourself at that time. And also another thing that you can push yourself beyond your limits, but you also have to understand where your limits are. The summit is not always the most important. It's coming back.
Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. Today we're talking with one of the only people on Earth to climb the highest volcano on every continent. Ricardo Kaljouw recently became the first person from the Benelux region to complete the Volcanic Seven Summits challenge with his climb of Mount Sidley in Antarctica. And today we're going to hear about the challenges of completing this incredible feat. Hi, Ricardo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me.
It's super cool. I've never met anyone who has done anything like this. So I want to start go back, to when you were a little kid. Have you always been fascinated by climbing and volcanoes?
No, I haven't been. No, I am from the Netherlands and my house is even below sea level. We are fighting the sea and we are very good at it. And our highest mountain hill, it's more about 300 meters. So yes, in some way you are fascinated by mountains. You don't have them here. They're pretty far away. But the thing is that I really started to get involved into mountaineering was when I started to get more into traveling and got more in contact with the mountains. But I always was a person who was very active. So I always liked to be being in nature and running and etc. And I had a goal to see the world. And if I combined all those things, for me, I came into the armed forces. And from there, it started that I went over all the world and started to get in contact with these mountains and later volcanoes.
And so what was the starting point to say, I want to climb the 7 highest volcanoes on Earth or on each continent?
I got into it. And what happened was I didn't have the philosophy of just like from the beginning of doing it. What happened to me was I was on an anti-piracy mission in the Gulf of Aden, so near Somalia and that regions. And then one time we made port and I came into Mombasa, into Kenya. And I had one other dream and was going on a safari. And in Kenya, pretty good to do. So I went there, but there was something looming in the distance. And that was a very big volcano. And we all know this volcano. It's Kilimanjaro. And yes, I was active, but I knew that altitude was something completely different. And from there, I started to put my action to start climbing Kilimanjaro. And then after that, some other volcanoes came and other mountains. And literally when I was halfway of this challenge, I found out that this existed.
I love it. It's like an accidental thing you're focusing on. I love hearing that. What was the order of the climbs you did?
So like I mentioned before, I did Kilimanjaro. And after that, just a little bit of a sidestep of this, I went to a region which is very, different and dangerous. It is the border of Rwanda and Congo. Quite in the news also recently because of rebels have taken over the city of Goma. Near that city, you have a beautiful volcano. It's called Nyarangongo. And there I went and you could look into the crater where there is a lava lake, the biggest lava lake in the world. And you can sleep on top of it. And from that moment, for me, it was, I'm going to focus more on volcanoes. So to get back to the list, from Mount Kilimanjaro, I went to more in Africa. But you have to start climbing into the snow and the ice. So eventually, I made my way to Russia to do Elbrus, and the highest of Europe. After that, I went to Asia, Damavand, and then I did, I think, 3 volcanoes pretty rapidly. After the pandemic, it was Gilue, Pico de Orizaba, Ojos de Salado, and after that, Mount Sidley on Antarctica.
So some of these were in pretty interesting places. So I want to go back to your climb in 2019 of Mount Damavand in Iran. And, most people, especially here in North America, it's hard to get visas or you can't go to Iran. What's it like going to Iran and then climbing volcanoes? How different is it from elsewhere you've been?
Of course, the first time when I went, the people were just a little bit shocked that I was gonna go to Iran. I think with Iran there's a layer on top of it. There's a political layer, of course, and people think it's a very dangerous country. However, though, when I've been there, it's quite the opposite. I never felt unsafe, or I found the people very friendly. There's a lot of culture, of course, the foreign Persia empire and everything. The only thing was when I came there, I think it was in 2019 when the nuclear treaty or something was cancelled between the West and Iran. And then, being a foreigner over there were a lot of sanctions and everything put on Iran. Some people were looking at you like you are one of the reasons that economically it's worse over here. But for climbing itself, it's a beautiful country. Especially when I went at the end of the winter season, and a lot of people know only Iran with just deserts and nothing else. But yeah, there are mountains that are higher than here in Western Europe, than the Alps. So climbing over there is a very special thing. And yeah, maybe one day I will go back, 100%.
I've met people who have traveled to Iran and they all kind of say something very similar of just the people are so kind and
Yeah.
if you could just get rid of the government, the government, there's issues between the different governments, but the average people are just so welcoming and kind. And it's, on a level that's, people say it's like the kindest people they met were in Iran when they do these round the world tours. And it's good to hear you had the same experience. So hopefully at some point we can all go travel in Iran and
Yeah, and
experience that firsthand.
I'm quite lucky. I'm quite lucky that you mentioned in 2019 I went to Iran. And currently, of course, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and also we're talking about Russia. It is possible to climb over there, but when I started all these climbs, the world was a little bit in a different place and was more easy accessible. So yeah, I got lucky in some way that when I started this challenge, really, that started from Iran itself. Yeah, I already crossed off the ones that are maybe a little bit doubtful to go through.
So after the pandemic, you came back and you went to Papua New Guinea. And I've read stories about the ruggedness of the jungles in Papua New Guinea. Whenever you read like these old travel logs, it looks like, oh, this should be a fun place to go. And then it's like, no, this is like really, really tough country.
Um,
What was your experience? I've never talked to anyone who's actually done anything there. What was that actually like for you in Papua New Guinea?
for me personally, I think it's an ancient time machine. When you go, a lot of people when they go to Papua New Guinea, they go to the island of New Britain, and there you have all the resorts and the beaches and you name it. It's beautiful. Yeah, of course, culture. But if you go into let's say, into the mainland, into the highlands, there are still people living there in very primitive ways. And you were talking about the jungle. Yes, it is correct. After the Amazon and the Congo, New Guinea has one of the biggest jungles of this planet. So it's a very old jungle, and it's just it doesn't want you there. It's and that is the beauty of this volcano in the list that we have, is that all the others, they have like a glacier, they have altitude, they have something, but this is not really a high volcano, but it is a very remote volcano, and it is in the middle of the jungle. So getting to it is quite of an adventure, let's say it that way.
And so how do you, are there roads carved out of the jungle? Is there a big trek to get to, where you start climbing?
Yeah, what I had two local guides with me, really from a tribe over there, and they had this big machetes. And I came there literally after the raining season just ended. So everything got so much nutrition and just grow and was not easy to get to. I think every couple of weeks they have to cut open the track again, because the jungle grows so fast. And just for an example, when you're walking there, there's a lot of insects. You're sweating, and it's on the equator. The sun is directly on top of you. Everything has developed there, that like plants and insects, everything, it doesn't want you there. So if you touch something, you get a rash. Or there's a tree which has these big spikes. It's so humid that everything is rotten. So there are holes in the ground, you name it. It just keeps going and keeps going. And therefore your progress is really slow in those jungles.
Wow. And then I saw photos. Once you're up above kind of the jungle, it looks beautiful. It looks like it's like this beautiful grassland.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's, the photos that I saw in your social media, it looked like it's almost like a walk. So it seemed like the summit seemed easy. It was just the hassle of getting to it.
Yeah. It's eventually you come to the highlands, more in the moorland, let's say it that way. And there's it's after that it's not that difficult anymore, because you just go, and then yes, there's this small conical feature that you have to climb up. But compared to the jungle itself, which took like 2 days, 2.5 days to get to, um, is relatively easy. And well, a blessing, because you come out and the humid air is gone and you get some wind and you're like, oh, finally I'm out of this, well, this green maze. I'm rid of it.
Then in 2023, you did Pico de Orizaba in Mexico and Ojos del Salado in Chile, Argentina, up in the Atacama Desert. And we had a guest on who wrote a book about the Atacama, and he wrote a bit about Ojos del Salado and just how inhospitable it was. You also mentioned that it was one of the toughest adventures of your life. What made that climb specifically so hard?
A couple of reasons. One is the obvious one. It's the altitude. If you check the list, it's way higher than the other volcanoes that are on the list. It is the highest volcano in the world. It's almost 7,000 meters. I don't know how many that is in feet exactly.
I always times it by 3. In Canada, we use the metric system as well. So I think it's, probably around 21,000 feet.
Yeah,
so
something like that.
A big mountain.
It's really high. At that region, you really start, even if you're trained like me, you really start to feel the altitude at the place. So that's the obvious reason. Then the second reason is, like you mentioned, it's quite remote also in the Atacama Desert. Yes, so you are on an expedition. The nearest town is maybe 5 hours away from you. But really what for me was, there was a couple of reasons why it became the most difficult climb I ever had, was that when I went, there was they call it the effect, the Bolivian winter. And that is when the humid air from the Amazon goes over the Altiplano and eventually starts to drop down and snow. And when I went, it was the worst Bolivian winter effect they had in a very long time. Because most of the pictures and videos that the listeners are gonna look it up, you see Ojos and it's just a pile of rocks. So it cannot be that quite difficult to climb. But you have to imagine, when I was there, the snow was until my knees. And then going up to 7,000 meters is quite difficult. So that was the second reason, or the third reason it became one of my toughest climbs. But what happened was a lot of miscommunication between guides. And after the summit, there was a big group of climbers, around 6, something like that. We were, left behind for a certain time at an altitude of 6,700 meters. So, and you have to imagine, it's very cold up there, and it was dark, and we were already climbing for maybe 20 hours. So yeah, that was it was quite of a difficult and also a mental challenge. It was not only a really physical challenge, but also a mental challenge to get through it.
That whole region, it just seems so desolate and inhumane. It's kind of like the opposite of Papua New Guinea. in that it just doesn't want you there. It's, just
In a
everything's
different way.
dry. Yeah, yeah. It's like the exact opposite. It's like you shouldn't
Yeah.
be here. Now, I think the most visually stunning part of your trip was the summit you just did at Mount Sidley in Antarctica. And I kind of I started geeking on like, how do you actually get there? Like, I saw some of your photos just like staying in your base camp. Thought that looks just incredible. Can you talk maybe just about the logistical challenges for this route? Because, it's not easy just to make your way. You can't just, rock up at an airport. You've got to arrange all this to get to just where you start your climb from.
Yeah, so there's one organization who is doing this, and they are making this expedition run only once a year. First of all, it's because of the season, of course, and the popularity of it. It's not that popular to climb there. And just to give you a little bit of an example, in the history of mankind, only 100 people have ever been there. So it's very remote, and your starting point for most of these expeditions to go to Antarctica and cruises are from Punta Arenas or for Ushuaia all the way in Patagonia. So that is your first logistical trip that you have to make. But then something quite remarkable starts is that this organization, they put you into a regular aircraft, just a Boeing. And you think I have to go into a special aircraft or whatever, but you go in this normal aircraft and everything feels totally normal. You're gonna go through the gates and security and passport control and you name it. Even flying up, everything feels the same. But after 2 hours, you look down and then you see the continent. You just see one big blanket of ice. It just, as far as your eyes can see, beyond the horizon. And that plane is going to land on a blue iceway. They call it Blue Run Iceway. And it's just this very hard, concrete-like ice. And it plants the airplane over there. And there you have a very big base camp where other adventurers are coming for different climbs or going to the South Pole. But to go to Mount Sidley, you have to go further. You have to go around 1,000 kilometers further away from that base camp, which it's another aircraft is going to take you. A specialized aircraft, the old DC-3 from 1942 that was constructed to deploy, let's say, paratroopers from the Allies in World War II. Has been upgraded with some extra things for the cold and everything, but it's very reliable over there. And what happens at that moment, once you get the green light to go to that place, you will fly there, and then the pilots are gonna circle around like a vulture to see where can we land this plane the best. And then after a journey for me, for example, it took like, wow, I first flew to Punta Arenas and then further. I think it took me like 4 to 5 days to finally get to my expedition destination. And I was probably, with just a handful of people, I was the most remote person on the planet.
Wow. Wow. When you got to, the expedition starting point below Sidley, did you set up a base camp? Was it just, set up and then summit it in, a couple of days, or do you have to set up intermediate camps as you were climbing?
So first of all, it depends where the airplane is gonna land. So every year it's different because it's a big glacier over there, big ice sheet, and it's moving. So crevasses are also moving. So the pilots are going to check and find a secure spot to land. And sometimes that can be 10 kilometers from the base of the volcano, and the other times is 5 kilometers. So in my, what happened with me was around 8 kilometers to the foot of the mountain. But there is a high camp when I had a base camp, I had a high camp on this one, and then eventually you try to get a summit attempt, which in my case took very long time to make an attempt for particular reasons.
How long were you on the volcano then?
Well, we did the longest expedition ever. So yeah, I do feel blessed. I'm one of the one of the few people in the world who ever spent that long time at Mount Sidley. It was around 15 days.
And what is like life in camp like at the base of the most remote place on Earth? Like, do you guys have like a common group tent where you're hanging out, or do you just
Yeah,
stay
we
in
have
your tent, listen to podcasts, reading books all day?
Yeah, well, what happened to me was especially so normally the setup is you have two tents and then you have a dining tent. And in the dining tent, yes, you commute, you are there, you talk about a lot of things. And of course, you try to sleep in your others and read a book or whatever. The thing is that you have to understand around you, there's just ice and everything. What you have to consider that everything 10 meters from the camp or less, you have to think of it's very dangerous. There can be hidden crevasses and everything because nobody has been there. So your room of, let's say, moving around is very limited at that place. So it can also become quite fast, can become boring eventually. So you have to keep yourself mentally going and thinking there's going to be a chance of reaching high camp and even to the summit.
Did you guys have skis with you, or was everything done on foot?
No, I think a couple of years ago there were some expeditions. They were landing somewhere different of the volcano, and from that part they took skis with them. We didn't use them. I didn't find them even needed. They did take them, but one of the attributes that we did had was the famous sled that we had just behind us. Put all your gear in, and then start pulling, which is on the flat surface, muy bueno. It's very good, but as soon as you as soon as you start to get that angle of the volcano, which is naturally formed, yeah, it can become quite difficult to pull it up.
I have a ski touring pulk, and yeah, I thought, oh, this could be great. I want to carry a backpack into these backcountry cabins. And the first time I used it, yeah, you go up and it's like pulling you to the side, and it's like, oh, this is actually super hard if you're gonna like be going up a mountain, and then coming down, it was just as bad because it's pushing you down, and if you have to turn, it's kind of like. So I have it in my. I've used it like once actually in the mountains.
Yeah, but
It's just
you
like
have to understand, Richard, is that we had a lot of equipment with us, and
yeah.
we
Yours
had
would
to
be like 100 pounds. I had like 20 or something or 30.
yeah, we had to be totally self-sufficient. So what happened was when we had the base camp, we packed everything up. Only the dining tent is stayed, and then the smaller tents we picked up. But we also had to grab our food with us, fuel with us, um, special gear for crevasse rescue, personal gear, of course. And yeah, then it accumulates to a lot of weight. And putting that in your backpack, nah, that is a no-go. Then you rather put it in the sled. But still, yeah, it's you're done after around 8 to 9 hours, 10, maybe 10 hours of pulling it to the high camp. Yeah, you start feeling it.
And I read your guide had to be medevaced. What happened there, and how did that impact your trip?
It had a big impact. Like I mentioned, all my other trips, I had a lot of things happening, and yeah, well, beautiful things, also terrible things. And I went to Sidley, and when I came to base camp, it felt like this expedition was going to be a very easy one because literally the day after we arrived over there, we went to high camp, and the guy told me, "Tomorrow, just prepare. Tomorrow, weather is good, done and dusted. We're gonna go to the summit." And I thought, like, wow, yeah, well, it's a very far away expedition, and it will be over in just 3 or 4 days. But it didn't went that way. Like you mentioned, my guide got sick, and he got lung edema.
Oh,
And you have to understand that when you are there, you are so far remote. There is every small thing what can medically happen to you, where you can get a lot of people can help you. Over there, it's different. So even the smallest effect that you can have, and this was even around 3,000 meters, which is kind of strange. But this is an expert guide, I have to say. A lot of people can get lung edema, just it can happen. But it felt like at the wrong time. However, though, it was needed. He started to get really sick. And what happened was that we had to take him, back down to the base camp. Loaded him in into the aircraft, and the aircraft was gone.
And did you get another guide, or they flew another one in a couple days later?
No, so what happened was there was an exchange. So there was another aircraft coming in from the base camp, which is a twin otter. Probably familiar with those in Canada. It came in and with a doctor and directly examined the person, which was getting a little bit better because we were reducing the altitude. And then directly from that point, we got another guide. However, though, you have to understand that the weather in Antarctica, even in the summer, it can be very treacherous. So it can change very rapidly. And in mountaineering, we always know that you have a summit push. It's the season is starting now. Everest, you will see that everybody starts to go creeping to that same summit window and crawl up there. I'm not saying it's the same at Sidley, but you have to wait out for a good weather window that you can make an attempt. Because let me tell you this: if you don't have sun over there, which is the volcano is covered in a cloud, it's almost like a no-go to go up there, because we're talking about temperatures of already with the sun around -40.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's chilly. When you finally were on the top of Sidley, like what was the feeling? Did you feel like you'd accomplish it, or was it just, I got to get myself down now, and you didn't really have time to focus on the accomplishment?
Yeah, I think you summarized it perfectly. The thing is that it's like a balance. In some way, you feel joy. You are very happy that you, after all the things that happened, you are there, and also some relief. In some way, yeah, I did put some pressure on me. The media has got some attention, especially the Dutch media, that you are trying to accomplish this. And the thing is, why I say about this pressure is that, well, we were very far in the season. They were almost going to cancel our expedition because it took way too long. And then literally on the last day it was possible, we made it happen. So yes, there was relief, there was joy. But there is also a realization of that you're halfway. And when you are in the high camp or in the base camp, you are a little bit more safe than at the summit of the most remote volcano on the planet. So you have to stay focused. You have to be, yes, celebrations, very nice, but we still have to go down. And we got quite lucky because when we went down, the wind started to pick up and really the temperature started to drop significantly. And I think when we went to the summit, it was a good period. If we went a little bit later, a couple of hours later, we were probably didn't make it and had to turn around.
A big part of an endeavor like this is coping with pain and discomfort, and like learning to be resilient and learning what the human spirit can endure under these incredibly harsh conditions. Can you talk about maybe what you learned about yourself?
Oh, yeah, I learned a lot about myself. But my journey starts already when I went into the armed forces. I understood that your body can do way more than you ever think. But in mountaineering, it's a little bit more different. You have to also, so first of all, your resilience is way better than you can think. But also, you have to learn how to adapt, because you can plan everything whatever you want, but the mountain will always say it will go different. So you should never go in with a perspective. Yes, we're going to go from A to B and it's going to go like this. Anything can happen in the mountains and you have to be ready to adapt yourself at that time. And also another thing, which is a quite weird way, I just mentioned that you can push yourself beyond your limits. but you also have to understand where your limits are. It's a bit against each other. I understand that, but you have to understand that the summit is not always the most important. It's coming back. And you have to understand that you have enough energy, enough time, and maybe a sprinkle of luck that is maybe in you to come back safe. Because if you're going to push beyond that line, um, accidents can happen, or even worse. So that is things that you have to learn, and I learned by doing it completely wrong. I'm still here, so that's okay. But I have one time I pushed my a little bit too far. I thought that I could do more, and then I came back well in a good shape, but with a mental dent. Let's say it that way.
So I know, a lot of people, even myself, we kind of get in these mindsets. I can only hike this far. I can only run this far. I can only cycle this far. I can only climb this level of pitch. You talked about in the army kind of pushing back away these kind of assumptions of what we can do. Can you maybe talk about what that process is for people who maybe are stuck and they can't seem to push themselves harder?
Yeah, I think you are correct by saying when I was in the armed forces, for me it was more, well, I got taught it the hard way when I first came into boot camp, and I thought I could not do a lot of things, and eventually they push you further than you think. And with me, I don't know what it is, but after breaking that mental seal with me a couple of times, I understand that my limit is just I can push it way further in some way. I don't know exactly why that is. I think it has grown like an adult over time by doing it more times. And yes, I have felt sick because I went further than I should be. But I do feel, and especially with altitude, is that eventually when you go to, let's say, extreme altitude, you go above 6,000 meters, then your body is just saying, you should not be here. This is really bad. But let me tell you this, when I went back a couple of times to that same altitude, in some way, my body is, I'm not saying fully adapted. No, that will never be. But it picks up quicker what to do in some way. It's like your body is evolving, which is pushing your goalpost uh, further away mentally.
It's incredible. I remember reading a book by a British SAS officer, and or I don't know, an officer. He's somebody who was just training, and he was in the S, and he described like how they break down, what you think you can and can't do. And it was kind of like his kind of comment is when you think you have nothing left, that's when you have only 30% left or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And when you're talking, I was thinking of that. It's like, yeah, like, but he also says he's just a lot of it's mental. And like for me thinking, oh, I'm going to hike, 35 kilometers, I'm going to backpack 30. That's insane. But then I have friends who have done the Pacific Crest Trail and they be doing like 45 or 50 kilometers a day because they just, they do a 33-kilometer day. And then a week later, they do a 37 and they realize I just didn't think I could go beyond 35. But once you realize you can, it's totally easy. And it's a bit probably like, discovering the new world with, Columbus and Magellan. Okay, you get just beyond it, you turn back. Next time you're like, oh yeah, we got to the Caribbean. Let's try a little bit farther. It's probably like that with the body of just slowly trying a bit more and seeing, oh, my body can actually handle this.
Yeah, I think it's you should not never go totally directly extreme, of course, but I think you are just pushing the limit a little bit further, and eventually your body will say, "Well, this is my quite new normal," and you start to get comfortably at it. And I really think that we as a human species have became a little bit too comfortable with a lot of things. And of course, we had a lot of resources and everything, and houses, you name it. But it's still in us. it is there. We can, if you really want to, and you break that mental seal, you can just slightly put the meter a little bit more to the right.
You have a book coming out later this year about this journey.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, when it's going to be released and, where people can find it? We don't have a big Dutch audience, lots of North Americans, Brits, and kind of English speakers scattered across the world. But will English speakers be able to find this book?
Yeah, I'm busy with that. So I have it here. This is my book. It's called A Million Steps on Lava. So quite
Great title.
it describes a long journey on the solidified surface. Yes, I'm busy with a publisher, and what is happening is that we are trying to push it before the summer to get it released. Not quite sure where it will be. However, though, there will be publications on my own Instagram, and we will get there later, where you can find it. But yeah, my hopes are, of course, that it can be told to a very broad audience around the world.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on the show today, Ricardo, and sharing your journey. It just seems incredible, and yeah, especially that Antarctica. Just if listeners want to kind of just get a taste of it, you have some great photos on your Instagram that I was just like, oh, I don't want to climb. I don't want to climb down there. I just want to go hang out in Antarctica in the middle of the continent. It just seemed beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very unique place. It's very precious and almost alien-like. When you are there, it feels that you are not on this planet anymore. And that is the beauty of it. Because when I came back, I went into to the same aircraft that brought me there. And literally in maybe 4 hours, I was back in the normal world. Just like that.
If people want to learn more about your journey or follow you on social media, how can they do that?
I run like most people, I run an Instagram account, which is Seven Volcanic Summits. Over there, you can find my journey into this volcanic realm, which isn't over because I am gonna start a very new challenge pretty soon, probably from May onward, and that is gonna be something that nobody in the world has ever done.
Oh, wow. Are you willing to share what it is, or is that a secret until
No, it's not a
you're on it?
secret at all. It's gonna come out soon. So I'm my heart lays. There's a fire inside of me, like a crater. It's just erupting. It's. I like to be at the volcanoes. So I want to put my focus on volcano climbing. I want to make the world known that in the shadow of those mountains, literally and figuratively, there are beautiful volcanoes to be climbed. And my challenge is going to be that not always of some countries, the high point of a country is a volcanic high point. So sometimes there are mountains who are higher. So what happens is that all the attention goes to the highest point. However, though, like I said, I go for the volcanoes. I want to show around the world the volcanic high points of the countries. And what I'm going to do is the top 25 country volcanic high points. I want to climb them. I did already a couple of them. However, though, there are some very remote ones. We're talking about in the middle of the Sahara, where you have to trek around 6 to 7 days with a dromedary to reach it and climb it up and go back. There are volcanoes who are active at the moment to climb in Indonesia. There are relatively less climbed volcanoes in Colombia to reach the highest summit. Going to Alaska, going there with a helicopter and with skis and climb a volcano over there. So for me, that is my new challenge that is coming up. And what I call it the Volcanic Grand Slam.
It sounds incredible. You'll see so many different places, different cultures. I was just looking at the biggest one in Canada. It's Mount Sidley. I remember seeing a YouTube video years ago. It's like really tough terrain to get in there. But it's not that high. It's only like 2,800 meters.
Therefore it's not on the top 25, unfortunately.
It's too small. I thought it might have been Logan here, which is a big mountain just on the border with Alaska. I thought,
no, the one in Alaska
that's a mountain.
It's Mount Bona. That is a volcano in the Alaskan region, but it is in the United States. It's pretty close to the Canadian border.
Yeah, I know there's some volcanic stuff there, but well, that sounds incredible. Thanks again for coming on the show today, Ricardo. I'll put links to your socials and your website in the show notes. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Richard, for having me.
Start planning your own adventure by visiting us at 10adventures.com and listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts.